Okay, so this is my response to the Leonard Jeffries lecture that we just left. So the whole event for Malcolm X Day began, and I brought my children, and we were there to support the community, to support uplifting Black people, um, to support Malcolm X's legacy, to just get more information and more education, to be more of an awakened, enlightened people. So, what happened that made us leave the event um, about an hour before it was scheduled to end is more than likely Dr. Jeffries intended his words to be a joke, but he had made a couple statements in the beginning. Well, first and foremost, the event began with the libations, so we were to channel in our ancestors and like bring in the strength and the guidance of our ancestors, those that passed before us, those we that help to uplift us day by day. So, are you intending to be in this? Because you're in it. You could sit down and listen. So, um, okay. So I'm bringing in the spirits of my late granddad, who raised me as my dad, Mo Jones, my great grandmother Daisy May, my other great grandmother Myrtle, and just anyone that knows me well knows I've lost countless friends, and I just felt their spirit. So I'm feeling very uplifted, very power to the people. There was a lot of power to the people going on and prayer, and we're all kings and queens. And the whole point of this event is to uplift each other as a Black community. So after all this, there was a couple times where Dr. Jeffries said a couple curse words. I didn't even notice. I was so into it and taking my notes and listening to the spoken word and preparing my poetry for an event to come. And then he started cursing again. And so this time I caught on more, but he started to point, when he would curse, he would say, he would be apologetic to the children in the audience. And I knew there were other children because one even performed, but I didn't necessarily see another group of children. I just saw like a lot of dashiki clad, Wakanda preaching, speaking people. So, yeah. So when the curse words, the whatever, I guess he said shit or something, he directed the attention towards my children, and he was like, I apologize to the children here. And I'm like, no. And just like I had told him the first time, I'm like, no, they're fine. My kids are fine. My kids are very ahead of their time. They've been going through this ride of life with me, my 10-year-olds. So Dr. Jeffries, as uplifting to the Black community and all of the different things that we've all been through, as uplifting as he is, and I'm saying to you guys, like, yeah, it may have been he intended it to be a joke, but when he turned his attention towards me and my kids, and I said, no, they're fine to hear what you have to say, because obviously I brought them to Malcolm X Day for a reason, for many reasons. I'm raising 3 boys by myself, Black men. I'm raising them into kings. That's my plan. That's why I was there. Um, I was okay with them hearing whatever the man had to say, and I'm over there taking notes. But what he did say was, um, and again, he may have intended it to be a joke, but he was like, "Oh, have you ever heard of birth control?" So right then and there, I already knew that that wasn't very uplifting. So that changed my way of thinking. The lecture was already going a different direction because it had gone into a place of um how, whether or not I think Oprah or other celebrities are bleaching their skin, and I, I don't know. It went from quickly left from a positive place in my perspective, but I may not have even caught on to that because I'm the type that tries to filter out, take from something and leave out what I don't need. So it was going there anyway, but he said, "Oh, how many of those do you have?" And I'm like, "Oh, you mean my children?" And I'm like, 3. two of which are twins. Do I get a pass for that? And then I start to realize that I don't have to ask for anyone's approval or acceptance of my children that I brought into the world. But what happened there for me, which ultimately got me to the point where I got up and left, was it wasn't uplifting to me. He doesn't know my story. My sons were in the car saying, I know he's supposed to be a wise man, but that was kind of disrespectful. And I don't know what, I know he's had many trips to Africa. I heard that part, and he's a doctor, and I'm not taking anything away from it. But all I was trying to get across, because one of my friends told me not to get up and leave, I don't have to sit there and listen to that. So what actually was said, I know I'm like just letting it all out right now, but what was actually said was, have you ever heard of birth control? Have you ever heard of abstinence? Two things that I've definitely heard of. I may not have a doctorate, but I do have a degree. And I've heard of both of those things. So that's good for me. And then this is said in front of my children. Um, and then he did ask me how many of those I had. And by the time I got to the point where I felt like I was kind of explaining myself, I did get up against my friend's wishes. I did get up and walk out of the lecture, um, up the middle aisle in front of everyone with my children. I wasn't going to sit there and have my sons listen to that as if there was something wrong with the fact that I have three of them. um that was one of my things, but the other thing is, I've been in a very good spirit. Like, it's been a great day, Malcolm X day, everything's great. That didn't feel great, and I do trust my emotions enough to know when it's time for me to remove myself from a situation. But asking me if I've ever heard of birth control, in the middle of your lecture, though, it's great that have such a dynamic energy that somehow the attention always seems to be directed towards me. But I will not allow anyone, even Dr. Leonard Jeffries, to ask me in front of my children if I've heard of birth control, abstinence, or how many of them I have, even if it was meant to be a joke. It wasn't comedy hour. I was there to receive food, to receive knowledge. And I was excited. We were talking about Kemet and just spiritually awakened topics. That's what I was there for. So it's sad that in the midst of skin bleaching or whatever other conversation was being had, which I've had nothing of the sort, or I don't know who's whitewashed and who's mixed with what. I'm over here taking notes for my poem because people keep asking me what I'm mixed with, and I'm like, my parents are black and my grandparents are black, so I'm gonna go with black. And we could keep tracing it all the way back to what I learned in my family reunions if it's necessary. But to me, black parent, grandparents mean black. So that's what I was taking notes on when all of a sudden the attention was directed towards how many kids I potentially had. Now, I'm not going to take this all the way through my Saturday night, but I am going to say, for all of us that want to judge books by a cover and would think to disrespect a woman in that way, if that's the way I choose to perceive it. I mean, my sons perceived it that way. I just felt like it was time to go. That's how I take it. I didn't even take it that deep. I'm about to go in my room and watch Grey's Anatomy. Like, I'm all good. But I do want to say, you don't know when someone's with their children. The man next to me and my children could have been my husband. He didn't know. He didn't see my ring finger. I could be married. I could have did it the right way. I could have been raped. My kids could be a product of rape. He doesn't know that. I could have just chose to stand up and have the children. Um, I could be a victim of sex trafficking. My children could have been the children of that. I mean, I could have just chose that I want my kids and could be taking care of them. But if it's do I know about birth control and abstinence? I actually used birth control when I got pregnant with my twins. I don't know. We can work that out a million different ways if you want to. But I just feel like as a man standing firm for the black community, and we're doing power to the people all day, why would you come at a black queen, a sister, and come at me like that, even if it is a joke? I didn't find it funny. My kids didn't find it funny. They were actually very proud when I walked out of there, because you don't know somebody's story unless you ask. Now, if he wanted to ask, like one of the ladies at one of my churches asked one time, why would you have all those children out of wedlock? I don't really visit that church too often anymore, but he could have asked the question. I mean, he was in the middle of a lecture. He should have just focused on his task at hand. His attempt at being funny didn't really get too much humor. And my friend that was sitting by me was so concerned that my voice was going to be in his recordings. And he was so disturbed by the idea that I would walk out of there. And I absolutely did with my sons. And I took my non-birth control, non-abstinence, how many, God knows how many I have. Well, one set's twins. And I waited, I took a second and asked for a pass. I don't need a pass from anyone. God gave me these kids. These kids saved my life. These kids are the reason that my soul is on the right track, that I'm on the right track. And the last thing I want when I go to a community event looking for empowerment and unity is to be a victim of ridicule when you don't know my situation. I could have been married. I could be. I could be married. It's crazy because at the beginning of the lecture, when I saw Mr. Jeffries sit down and he started to speak, I told my sons, I looked to them, I looked to my left, I told Kanan, I said, I want a husband like that. I said that. The girl who swore to never get married or whatever, that's changing now. I'm getting older. I said, I want a husband like that. And once again, here I am getting unwanted attention to get cracked on. Like, you ever heard of birth control? You ever heard of abstinence? By this enlightened, awakened man that's there to empower the community. No disrespect. I saw that gangster looking, dashiki wearing. I saw the people this guy rolls with, and I could have put on, I love my dashikis. I could have put mine on too. But I just went. I made sure I got there on time. I gave my kids dinner first. One of them was falling asleep in the middle of it because I wanted some food for my spirit, some food for my soul. And you made the mistake of having me call on my ancestors because Mo Jones and Mildred Bowen and Myrtle Merrill and Daisy Mae Jones, like none of them, Evelyn Jones, Gus Jones, Lou Jones, all of mine that have passed, all that call on me on their deathbed, all that come to me in my dreams when they pass, they all were inside of me. And I was standing in those libations when I decided to take my butt and get up with my sons and walk out of there. Because I don't have to take that from nobody. And one day I will have a husband. And maybe there'll be another child. When the guy asked how many of them there were, he said, how many are you gonna have? And I said, three's good. I'm wondering why I'm even responding to this man. And one of my babies tells him five. Hey, what if I do have five? What business is it to you? Come enlighten us. Tell us what that ankh mean. Tell us what that comedic. Tell us what that comedic do. Tell me that. Why are you so concerned about where my children came from? Thank the Lord they're here because they saving me, and God only knows who else they'll save or who they're meant to be in this world. That's what's important.